Hi everyone, welcome to episode 42 of Woolen Spinning. My name is Rachel and I can be found pretty much everywhere as well for pearls. Thank you so much for tuning in this week and for watching. I really appreciate the time that you spend here. And for those who are new to the show, thank you so much for giving me a chance and for checking out the show. This is all about hand spinning and making your own yarn and then knitting with it. So I hope that that is something that you're interested in. It's something I'm incredibly passionate about, as many of you know, and I get very excited. And I tend to geek out sometimes about yarn. And yeah, so thank you so much for joining me. I'm coming to you from just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia, and I live with my husband and two kids under 4, and we have 2 dogs. And one of our dogs, Charlotte, she's my dog. She's actually going in for surgery later this morning. So I'm recording quite early in the morning so that I can get ready to take the kids and her into Vancouver where my vet is, and she'll spend the next 48 hours there. So for those who have been sending me well wishes about Charlotte, thank you so much. And yeah, she is going in for surgery today. So I think the show will go out on Thursday night this week, October 20th. And this is sort of going to be a bit of a montage show because I have a lot to talk about and I have a lot to share with you. I want to mention one giveaway that's going on in the Ravelry group right now. It is for the Sukaplaki gauge wraps print card. I don't have one right here to show you, but I will insert a photo. I hope that you have taken advantage of Alexi's incredibly generous offer of 20% off in his Etsy shop using the coupon code WELFORDPEARLS, all in capital letters. This coupon code is good until the middle of November, and the giveaway in the October episode thread in the Woolen Spinning Ravelry group will run until the end of the month. I will draw giveaway winners next week, and I actually have 3 to give away, so I hope that you win. I'm going to jump right in. I have a little bit of spindle spinning to share with you, some finished skeins. I have some wheel spinning that I've been working on. I also have a brand new cast on, and I have a finished object that I'm going to show you, but I'm going to talk about more next week just because I have a lot of other things to share with you this week. So I think I might start with my finished skeins. These I finished the weekend prior to the beginning of Spinzilla. Spinzilla is the monster week of spinning that starts at the beginning of October and ends usually on the weekend of Canadian Thanksgiving. We started spinning like the wind on October 3rd, which is at midnight on the Monday. But that weekend prior, on October 1st and 2nd, here in Vancouver is an enormous fiber event called Knit City. I was working there at the in the Sweet George Yarns booth all weekend. I had a great time. I showed some footage of what that was like in episode 40. So if you're interested, go have a look at episode 40 right at the end. And while I was sitting there spinning, I actually got 3 skeins of yarn done. And partially because I worked on stuff in the evenings, I was trying to clear off all of my bobbins for Spinzilla. So I'm just going to have a sip. My throat's a bit dry this morning. So the first skein that I finished was something that had been languishing on my wheels and on my bobbins since back in January. I had started this spin on my Hanson mini spinner when I still owned it, and I had to clear off the bobbins that I had started on the Hanson when I decided to sell it. A friend of mine approached me and I was able to sell it to her, and she's needing knee surgery and knee replacements in both legs, and so she can't treadle anymore. So this was singles on my Hanson, and I wanted to get them cleared off of the bobbins because I had stored them on some of my shacked bobbins, the singles, but I still had one more bobbin to spin. So I finished that at Knit City. It's very, very high twist. I spun it at 18-1 on the shacked. I have on my matchless. I have no idea. No, sorry, I spun it on my sidekick because I was spinning at Knit City. I plied it on my matchless. I have no idea what I was spinning on the Hanson. It was so long ago now. But basically, this was a speckle dyed fiber that I had done after I took a class at Maiwa here in Vancouver back in November of 2015. I can't believe it's been that long. It was almost a year ago. It was a wonderful weekend. If you're thinking about taking the Intro to Dyes course, it's with Natalie Gambro at Maiwa. I would highly recommend it if you just want an overview of how to dye most textile fabrics out there. She covers wool, fabric, and yarn, which is like raw wool, I mean, and it was just an awesome course. I found the second day was a bit tedious because it was dyeing plant-based fibers. So cotton, flax, I think we did some hemp fabric. Anyways, it wasn't really up my alley. It wasn't really what I was interested in, but I kept all of my notes and I kept all of my stuff because I suspect one day I'll delve into some of that, but I'm not quite over wool yet, my wool obsession. So anyways, this was fiber that I had speckle dyed after I had taken that course. It was just on some superwash wool that I had in my stash from Louette from years ago, and it turned out really, really well. Speckle dye spins up really interestingly. For those who have spun speckle dyed fiber, it does not look the way it looks in the fiber once it's spun. It kind of almost goes a bit more pastel-y. So this is a traditional 3-ply, super high twist, like I said, and I was really interested to see what it would look like Navajo plied. So the remainder of one of the bobbins, I actually Navajo plied just to see the difference, and they are a bit different. This is quite high twist, and I'm going to use this for the toes and the heels, just because I quite like the clean color, and it's just turned into a really, really lovely yarn. So I'm really happy with how that turned out. The other skein that I finished was Sweet Georgia Yarns October Club. So if you don't want to see this, turn away. But the neat thing about this month's club, the colorway was called Equinox for the fall. And I spun this as a traditional 3-ply. I divided up the braid horizontally 3 times. So I split it twice to have 3 chunks of fiber. And then that broke up the colorway. And then each chunk I stripped and stripped and stripped and stripped until I had these quite thin, wispy, so I got some wool in my eye, I think. Until I had these really wispy nests of fiber. And I spun them just end to end and to 3 bobbins and plied. So Felicia had asked me this month, and she had written this in the spinning notes, to just spin your default yarn. What's your comfort zone yarn? And to spin that. And so that's what I did, a blended 3-ply. For those of you who've been watching for a long time, you know that when it comes to a 4-ounce hand painted braid, that's definitely my go-to. I just love blending up all the colors. It came out quite dark in comparison to the original braid of fiber, which was quite a bit brighter due to sort of the clean color, and now I've kind of muddied it all up a little bit and created some barber pole with the bluey purple and green and the green and red. So I'm excited to knit with this and see what it might look like, because I really love the finished yarn. And this was merino tussa silk, so it was 80% merino, 20% tussa, and this is not superwash merino, so I did finish and set it in a lukewarm bath of water and eucalypt. So those are my finished spins. I have been doing some spindle spinning. For those of you who watched the recap of Knit City, which was episode 40, you will remember that I bought some Russian spindles. I have been using them. I have lots to say about them, and I'm going to save it for next show, because I've actually got this fiber here that was some Poonies. I've actually got it almost finished now, and I'm just starting to ply it. This was just what was left on my spindle, and I need to bracelet ply this last little bit. I have some reflections about supported spindle spinning, and I have really loved coming back to supported spindling after not doing it for about a year. I had a lot of trouble when I first learned. I had bought a supported spindle that was a sort of more for lace yarn. It spins really fast, and it was just a bit too, it wasn't heavy enough and didn't slow down enough for me to sort of concentrate on what I was doing. And these have just been awesome to come back to. I absolutely love them. I don't know how available they are. I got them through Ancient Arts Yarns here in Calgary, in Alberta. So if you're interested in the Russian spindles that they carry, you might want to contact them directly. But these have a lovely weight to them, and they've just been awesome to play with. I found when I first came to support spindling that I just couldn't get the hang of drafting and spinning and keeping the spindle in the bowl, and like it was just kind of all over the place, and I really struggled with the mechanics of it, because you're sort of doing long draw as you draft outward. You're sort of drawing out the fiber and spinning and drawing out, and as you become more proficient, that sort of all becomes this fluid motion. I'm not quite there yet. However, I had been perusing the internet for some various things about support spindling and finding out about Russian spindles and just kind of looking around. And one of the things that was like this little tidbit of information, and I clicked past it before it sort of registered with me, and then I couldn't find the source after. She said in the text to switch hands. So if you're struggling, she said to switch hands and draft with your non-dominant hand and flick with your dominant hand. So for me, that's my right hand, and I usually draft with my right hand. And she said for long draw, you don't need that precision of that dominant hand drafting. You need that precision for the actual flicking and controlling the spindle. So I switched, and that's when everything clicked for me. So all of a sudden, when I was flicking with my right hand and spinning and controlling it, all of a sudden this part felt very awkward at first, but all of a sudden I could actually do it. And so flicking with my right hand was definitely the trick and the change that I needed to be able to get things going and start to feel a bit more comfortable with supported spindling. And now it's funny because when I go back to trying to flick it with my non-dominant hand, I can't actually do it. So it was definitely the right thing. So if you're struggling, maybe try switching. It's going to feel very awkward, but it definitely worked for me. So that is my spindling, and I'll have more to share about that next week. You might remember the spin that I was working on it was back at the beginning of the year, I think, and it was going to be my other Zero to Hero spackle project. So Zero to Hero is a spin along that's going on in the Ravelry group right now. And I had started working on this at the beginning of the year as part of that project. And my plan was to knit a canopy shawl by Melody Hoffman of the Mandarins podcast. And basically this just sort of got put aside and forgotten. And part of the reason was because I got caught up in other projects. Part of the reason was because I had to card up more fiber. There was a whole slew of reasons. So I actually pulled this back out. We had the final spin in for Spinzilla at the studio at Sweet Georgia Yarns this past Thursday, so a week ago. And I had nothing to take. I didn't have anything on the wheels. I didn't want to take my support spindles because I just started playing with them. I didn't really know what I was going to do. And so I pulled this out and just grabbed it and took it with me. And I got the bobbin finish that I had sort of left languishing. So this is part of the fall clear out spin along that's going on in the group. Those other skeins that I showed you at the beginning of the show, that's part of the fall clear out as well. And if you're interested in that spin along, it's going on in the Ravelry group. I do encourage you to check it out. We're just working through projects that have been languishing for a long time. It can be any sort of spin that you've been thinking about for a long time. You just want to get it done. Things that have actually been started and you want to get it done. This was the sample yarn for this spin, and it's it's woolen. I'm spinning it woolen. It's a carded prep. I took the comb top and I blended it all up on my drum carder and took off these big bats. And then I've been stripping the bats down into little nests. I love this yarn. It's very soft. It's very airy, very light. It's not particularly springy or bouncy because of the airiness. And I'm really looking forward to finishing up this spin now that I've kind of got it back on the wheel again. This was my control card, and I don't use these anymore. I use big recipe cards so that I can record more information. So I need to take this apart and put this onto my big recipe card. But at least I had my information when I came back, because I was sitting there at the spin in at the studio going, okay, what was I doing again? So thank goodness I wrote it all down, because I wouldn't have been able to create the same yarn again. So that is that project. And the other project that's on my wheel right now, and I can't say too much about it, but this is dyed by my friend Karen of Farm Fairy Fiber, who is also sponsoring the color studies that has just started in the Ravelry group as well. Color studies is going to run through till April, and it's an opportunity for us to explore different color management strategies when we're spinning. People seem to be really excited about split complements this time, so we can, as of tomorrow, Friday, October 21st, you can start generating photos. They can be your own, they can be photos you found on the internet, anything that you find inspiring that is a split complement theme. So it might be a rusty red train, which is the example that I gave in the group. There's a photo there with the example, with teal water behind and lime grass, and that's a split complement to sort of a red rust. You can find out more in the Ravelry group, and if you have some photos that you think might work, please throw them in there, because Karen will scroll through and look at the photos and decide what she wants to dye based on what you guys generate for photos. So this is my first bobbin of this 2-ply fractal. This is for my friend Katrina. I'm going to pass it on to her for a project that we are working on. And yeah, I'm almost done. One more bobbin to go, and then I'll be able to ply. So I'm hoping this will be done by next week. So I have a new cast on, and the reason for that is because I finished my lemongrass sweater, which I'm going to show you in just a minute here. On the weekend, I knew that it was almost finished, and so I took my Spinzilla yarn that I made, which was the CVM Suffolk Meat Merino Cross. It's quite a toothy yarn, and I swatched. There is some color work in here that was the crossbreed of the sweater that I just finished. I had some leftover yarn, and I threw it in just to see what the color work would look like. But I didn't love it because I dyed this yarn from Spinzilla Black Walnut, and so it kind of made it just look sort of dirty, because with the dark brown natural crossbreed, it highlighted the dark heathering in the CVM cross. So I actually decided not to do this particular sweater as color work. I was going to switch what I had originally chosen, which was the Fireside pullover by Jane Richmond. I was going to switch and do her West Coast cardigan pattern that she just released. It's a Cowichan inspired sweater that are really popular here on the West Coast, and were the original brainchild of the Coast Salish. And so I decided not to do that for this project, but I still really want to do that sweater, so because I really want something with a zipper. So I'm going to table that for now. This was a skein of the finished yarn, so you can kind of see what the black walnut looked like after it was dyed. And this is roughly a worsted weight. There are some areas, because I spun it woolen long draw, and there were some sort of matted compressed bits in the roving. There are some spots where it's more like an Aran, and there are some spots where it's more like a DK, but overall it is a worsted weight, and it sort of seems, as it's knitting up, it really seems to bloom in the fabric as I'm knitting. And when I went to wash this was on 6mm needles, and I've actually decided to size down for the sweater to 5.5. It really bloomed with washing, so I think it's going to make a really beautiful sweater. And I thought that I would show you a really quick photo of the sweater. I'm hoping that you'll be able to see the photos. I love Jane's patterns. They're just awesome. She's local to me, and we've gotten to know each other over the years, and she's so inspiring. So this is sort of what it looks like. I did buy their new book, which is called Within, and it's just been released here in Canada, and is available. And it's just a beautifully laid out book. Her and Shannon, once again, Shannon Cook is her design partner, have done a beautiful job. So that is the sweater, and this is the collar of the sweater. So you start at the back neck, back here in the collar, and work your way around and down. So this is sort of where I am in relation to the anatomy of the sweater. And I'm just starting to work up this side over here to mirror this edge over here. So that is where I'm at. Very natural, very neutral looking, kind of gray. I really like it. So far, so good. All right, so I have been mentioning throughout the show that I finished my lemongrass pullover. This was sort of a poncho style sweater from Joji Locatelli. I had seen it on Ravelry when it was first released, and I really liked it. And then as I was looking for patterns for my natural crossbreed, I just kept coming back to this and coming back to this. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to see this. And I'm going to put in some photos at the end to share this with you. But this is the cable detail, and this really turned out quite well. The finished yarn is quite dense. When I washed it, the whole thing fulled quite a bit, so there's very little stitch definition now, although when you look at the fabric you can see it, but it's definitely fulled. I wouldn't be able to rip this out, not that I want to, but it's definitely took a little bit of a beating when it was washed. I used lukewarm water, and I think it was just a little bit too warm. for such a woolly yarn. And the sleeves did shrink slightly, which I was really bummed about because they were perfect before, and they had the perfect amount of ease, and they were just awesome. But the nice thing about it is I think I could rip out the sleeves if I really wanted to, or I could cut them and then rip them up to where, because it's raglan shaping, I probably could actually redo the sleeves if I wanted to. And this is the underarm detail with buttons. And of course it is a poncho style. I'm really tempted to actually tack this together because I find when I'm wearing it, I'm pulling at it. But I'm really happy with how this turned out in the end. It really is a really cool construction. There were some really neat details about it that Hohi includes that are really neat. And I did end up doing the mock turtleneck. And like I said, I will share some photos after the episode so that you can see sort of what the sweater looks like on me. But overall, I'm really happy with how it turned out. I'm looking forward to wearing it because I was predicting a really, really bad winter here, which for here, a bad winter is cold and wet. So it'll be damp, and that kind of dampness really gets into my bones now. And I have old swimming injuries in my shoulders, and I find I get really sore. But I have to be outside with the kids. So something like this that'll be really warm, that'll really keep me toasty under my rain jacket will be wonderful. So that is my finished sweater. And I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are this close to hitting the next milestone on Patreon, which means the show will go back onto iTunes. When that happens, my husband has asked for a 1-week grace period while he's getting it all set up. And then the show will be back on iTunes. So thank you to everybody who has supported the show. I think there is 1 or 2 spots left for Fiber Club, which is the $32 tier if you would like to join Fiber Club. And other than that, I will talk to you next week. Happy spinning, everyone. Bye.